I'm Donna. I work at the local library and am 31 years old, living a quiet life in a small, obscure town. To me, my life feels perfectly normal, even though it may appear unremarkable to others. I've always liked being by myself, away from the busy clamor of the outer world, and surrounded by the peaceful comfort of literature. I consider our library, a quaint building with creaky flooring and well-worn books, to be a haven. I love the daily routine of unlocking the library doors at 7 o'clock a.m., turning on the lights, and being welcomed by the soothing scent of old paper and bound leather. My parents passed away when I was a little child, therefore I was raised by my grandma. She was a kind-hearted person who constantly encouraged me to read and learn. Unfortunately, she has also died, so now it's just me and my little peaceful world with no direct relatives. Donna, good morning. As he walks in, Edward yells. He is a senior citizen who spends his days learning about the past. I smile and say, "Good morning, Edward," telling him that the most recent history books he had been anticipating had come yesterday. I've reserved those for him. He laughs and thanks me before heading to his favorite shelf. I see the same people every day, whether it's guiding Mr. Arthur to the science fiction department, recommending a romance tale to Mrs. Evelyn, or assisting kids in choosing books for school. I adore the rhythm and simplicity of my life, even though it is predictable. Then suddenly, the day Daniel entered, everything changed. His fine suit and confident manner made him a different kind of library patron. His voice was appealing and suave as he inquired, "Can you help me find a book?" He went to the classics after I said, "Certainly," a little embarrassed. Our fingertips momentarily met as I gave him The Great Gatsby, causing an unanticipated emotional outburst. He looked at my name badge and replied, "Thank you, Donna. Hi, I'm Daniel. It's good to meet you." That little conversation was only the start. It was the beginning of an unexpected love story that would drag me from the peaceful safety of my world into a maelstrom of uncertainty and deceit. I wish I had known what was coming. Maybe things might have turned out differently, but sometimes we have to learn from our mistakes in life doesn't come with warnings. Unexpectedly, Daniel began going to the library more frequently, even though he didn't seem to be really interested in reading. Every time he came, he would remain to talk and ask for advice. He volunteered to assist me one day while I was planning a shipment of new books. "Need help with that?" he said, coming up to me. "Thank you, that would be fantastic," I said with relief. He said, "So Donna, what drew you to working in a library?" While we were shelving books together. I gave a shrug. "I've always cherished books. You know, they're like buddies. It's also quiet here." He gave a kind laugh. "I see that." With real excitement in his eyes, he remarked, "It's like entering a completely different world." With each of his trips, our chats grew longer, and I discovered that Daniel was active in his family's real estate company. I felt genuinely seen and heard for the first time in years since he was a natural conversationalist. And then one day I was surprised by Daniel. With a hopeful look that made my heart skip a beat, he said, "Donna, would you like to have dinner with me tonight?" "Like a date?" I managed, surprised. He smiled. "Just like a date, yes." All of this was unfamiliar to me, yet I felt compelled to embrace him because of his unstoppable sincerity. I answered, my voice more steady than I felt. "Okay, sure. I'd like that." We decided to go on our date to a modest, basic restaurant in town. It was nice and uncomplicated, just what we needed. We talked about a variety of subjects, veering between somber debates and humorous antics. For a couple of priceless hours, I forgot about my often quiet and lonely life. Daniel said, "I had a great time tonight, Donna," as we made our way home. You're not like the individuals I often encounter." I simply grinned as I was at a loss for words. "I'd like to see you again. Would that be okay?" He said. I nodded as my heart warmed. Yes, that would be nice. We developed a relationship after that. We frequently spent time together, going out to eat, walking, and discovering the many corners of our town. I sensed for the first time that there was more to life than books and the peaceful routine I was accustomed to. I quickly developed a strong affection for him. Daniel was kind and considerate, which made me feel special and valued. I accepted his proposal without hesitation. "Yes," I replied. In hindsight, I regret not being able to recognize the indicators that things were not as ideal as they appeared to be, the facade that concealed his appeal. I was incredibly, maybe stupidly, in love, and love frequently causes us to become blind, ignoring possible warning signs. Things started to change when we were engaged, particularly with his family. His parents looked down on me and were unsupportive from the beginning. The first supper at their large, gorgeous house was nerve-wracking because I wasn't from an affluent family. Daniel said, "Donna, this is my father, Brian, and my mother, Susan." "Nice to meet you," I murmured, trying not to show how anxious I was. Susan examined every inch of me, and Brian's rejection was instantaneous. "Daniel, couldn't you find someone more suitable?" His remarks hurt, and I felt very uncomfortable. The dinner went on, with awkward silences and sly jabs at me. Daniel stood up for me in spite of their obvious contempt, which only deepened my love for him. They pushed on a prenuptial agreement prior to our wedding, saying it was just a formality. I consented without protest since I had little to lose. After we were married, I moved into Daniel's house, which was still governed by his parents. This change signaled the start of a new chapter in my life, one that would put my just-discovered love to the test and change it in unexpected ways. They acted as though they still owned the house, even though Daniel's parents had given it to him as a wedding gift. Frequently, they would arrive unexpectedly, swoop in, and take over right away. Susan would say as soon as she walked in, "Donna, make us some coffee," and I would comply without protest. Susan would frequently tell me, "Remember, Donna, in case of a divorce, you can't claim this," while pointing to items in the house, such as the TV. Nothing there was really mine, and that was a continuous reminder. Daniel also started to change with time. He was no longer the man I fell in love with. Instead, he began to make jokes about me, much like his parents. One evening, while I was choosing an outfit for a family gathering, I asked Daniel for his opinion. "This one makes you look less drab," he said, laughing. It hurt because it seemed he had become a different person around his parents, no longer the supportive partner I knew. Living in that house felt like being an outsider, an unwelcome intruder in what was supposed to be my own home. I held on to hope that things might improve, but they only deteriorated. The stress began to affect my health, manifesting as severe stomach pains. I tried to ignore it until one day I collapsed at the library and ended up in the hospital. The doctor diagnosed it as stress-induced. During my hospital stay, Daniel neither visited nor called, deepening my feeling of isolation. Then a notary visited my hospital room with unexpected news. My great-aunt, whom I barely remembered, had passed away and left me a fortune of $50 million. Suddenly, I was no longer just the poor library girl. When Daniel and his parents heard about my inheritance, their demeanor changed instantly. They visited with all smiles and fiend sweetness. "Darling, we're so happy for you," Susan said, her voice oozing sincerity. "Yes, we're a family. We should support each other," Brian chimed in. Their sudden shift was too stark to trust. After their visit, I overheard them talking outside my room, unaware that I was listening. She's such a fool. Can you believe our luck?" Daniel laughed. "We need to make sure she doesn't leave you, Daniel. Maybe you should have a child with her. That will tie her down," Susan suggested. Hearing their true intentions made me nauseous. They didn't care about me at all. They were only after my money. I realized then what I had to do. I had to escape from that house, from their manipulative grasp. I had to take control of my life and not be their victim any longer. I left the hospital with a clear plan in my mind. Upon my return home, Daniel and his parents were waiting, pretending to be the caring family they never were. "Oh, Donna, we were so worried about you," Susan exclaimed. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral to not give away my intentions. Daniel approached, greed barely veiled in his tone. "So when do you get the inheritance?" I looked at him, the man I thought I loved, and realized he was a stranger to me now. "Soon," I said, "but it's not something you need to worry about." His smile wavered. "But we're married, Donna. What's yours is mine, right?" I forced a smile. "Of course, darling." That night, as their words of fake concern and overt greed echoed in my mind, I couldn't sleep. I got up and began to write down everything they had done, every moment of deceit, preparing to take decisive steps to reclaim my life and my freedom. When they described it, they likened it to a dam bursting, years of accumulated frustration and pain finally being released. The next morning, I had a meeting with my lawyer. I laid everything out for him, including the prenuptial agreement. He was taken aback, but confirmed that the agreement would shield me. "You're doing the right thing," he assured me. Upon returning home, I walked into the living room to find Daniel and his parents waiting there. "There she is, our brave girl," Brian commented, his smile failing to mask his insincerity. Clutching my purse tightly, I announced, "I have something to say." They all turned, curiosity etched on their faces. "I'm filing for divorce," I declared, my voice unwavering. The room fell dead silent. Then Susan erupted, "What? You ungrateful little." Daniel sprang to his feet. "Donna, you can't be serious. We love you." "Do you, Daniel?" "Because I don't feel loved. I feel used." Susan, red-faced with anger, threatened, "We'll sue you. We'll take half of your inheritance." I reached into my purse and pulled out a copy of the prenuptial agreement. "Actually, you can't. This document states that neither of us can claim the other's property in the event of a divorce." They were dumbfounded. For the first time, I felt completely in control. Standing up, I declared, "I'm leaving. I don't want any of you to contact me." I walked out of the house, their shouts and insults fading behind me. It was the most difficult thing I had ever done, but as I drove away, I felt a tremendous sense of relief lifting from my shoulders. I was free from their disdain and their manipulation, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could truly breathe. I didn't know what the future held, but I was certain it would be better than my past. I rented a small apartment in the city. It wasn't anything luxurious, but it was mine, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. I was still navigating the divorce proceedings, but I felt equipped to handle it. One day, I received a call from my lawyer. "Donna, there's something you should know about your great-aunt's will," he said, his tone serious. Puzzled, I asked, "What about it?" He explained, "There's a stipulation. You need to use a portion of your inheritance for a charitable cause." It was your great-aunt's final wish. I was taken aback, having had no idea about this. She was quite the philanthropist, the lawyer continued. "It seemed she wanted to pass that on to you." I hung up the phone, deep in thought. My great-aunt had given me an opportunity to make a positive impact. It felt like a sign, a nudge in a new direction. I began researching charities and causes, eager to do something meaningful, something that would truly make a difference. That's when I discovered a small organization dedicated to aiding women who were victims of domestic abuse. The cause resonated deeply with me. I contacted them and arranged a meeting. The woman I met with, Carol, was passionate and committed. We provide shelter, legal aid, and counseling to women who have nowhere else to turn, she explained. I listened, deeply moved by the stories and the impact of their work. I want to help, I said, infused with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Under Carol's guidance, I allocated a portion of my inheritance to fund a new shelter. The thought of aiding other women to find their way out of dire situations, just as I had, filled me with a profound sense of fulfillment. A few weeks later, Carol invited me to the shelter's opening. It was a modest event, but the air was charged with hope and gratitude. As I mingled with the attendees, a familiar face caught my eye. It was Julie, a former colleague from the library. "Donna, is that you?" she exclaimed, surprised. "Julie, it's been so long." I replied, embracing her warmly. "What brings you here?" she inquired. I shared my story about the shelter and my role in its creation. She listened, eyes wide with amazement. "That's incredible, Donna. I had no idea." "It's a new chapter for me," I said with a smile. Catching up with Julie felt like reconnecting a missing piece of my life. As the evening concluded, Carol approached me. "Donna, I can't thank you enough. This shelter will change lives." Looking around at the faces of the women who now had a safe haven, I felt a warmth in my heart that had been absent for a long time. "It's the least I could do," I responded. Life at the shelter became my new normal, each day enriching and fulfilling as I found a purpose that was wholly mine. Then, unexpectedly, my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't seen in a while. "Daniel," I answered, keeping my voice steady. "Donna, I need to talk to you." "Can we meet?" "It's urgent," he pleaded, sounding desperate. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet him at a public coffee shop, hoping the familiar setting would lend me strength. Facing Daniel, he seemed a shadow of his former self, defeated, almost pitiful. "Donna, I made a huge mistake. I want you back." "I've realized how much you mean to me," he blurted. I stared at him, feeling only disdain. "Why now, Daniel?" He sighed. "My parents, they controlled everything. They were the reason our marriage failed. I was weak, but I'm different now." Anger surged within me. "You blame your parents. You stood by while they mistreated me. You laughed with them." Daniel reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Please, Donna, I know I was wrong. I've changed." Looking at him, I saw traces of the man I once loved, but my feelings had irrevocably changed. Changed or not, it's too late. "I feel nothing for you, Daniel. Nothing but contempt." His expression fell, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a glimmer of the man I had married, but it was transient. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I've moved on. I have a life now, a purpose. There's no place for you in it," I said firmly. He nodded, a look of resignation crossing his face. "I understand. I just had to try." Leaving the coffee shop, I felt a profound relief. It was truly over. The next day, we had an event at the shelter. A local artist had donated a sculpture to be unveiled in the garden. As I stood surrounded by people who supported and believed in me, I felt a deep sense of belonging. Julie, my old colleague, stood by my side. "You've done something amazing here, Donna," she said, smiling. As the artist revealed the sculpture, a figure of a woman reaching toward the sky, symbolizing hope, strength, and new beginnings, applause filled the air. For a moment, everything felt perfectly aligned. Carol, who had been instrumental in my journey, came over. Donna, this is just the beginning. There's so much more ahead. As I gazed around the room, buzzing with enthusiasm and potential, I couldn't help but acknowledge the transformative journey I had embarked upon. Every day at the shelter brought new experiences, each one building my confidence and affirming my control over my own life. Adding self-defense classes to my routine empowered me further, an endeavor I would never have considered in my previous life. Then one crisp afternoon, I noticed a familiar car outside the shelter. It was Susan, my ex-mother-in-law, stepping out with a hesitant look. "Donna, we need to talk," she called out, her voice unusually gentle. "I have nothing left to say to you, Susan," I responded, my voice firm yet calm. "Just give me a moment, please." "I've come to realize the errors of our ways," she implored. Curious despite myself, I paused to listen. "What is it you want?" I asked. "I'm here to apologize. I've been reflecting on everything and realize now how I treated you. I've lost my son, and I don't want to lose you too." "You were like the daughter I never had," she confessed, tears welling up in her eyes. I felt a fleeting twinge of compassion, but quickly stifled it. "Your actions caused a lot of pain, Susan. An apology doesn't erase that. I've moved on, and I think it's best if you do the same," I stated clearly. Susan extended her hand in an attempt to make amends, but I moved away. "Thank you for attempting to make things right, but it's too late. Susan, goodbye." Even though I could feel her eyes on me as I left, I was adamant about my choice. I discovered a letter from Daniel's attorney contesting the divorce settlement in my mailbox the next morning. Not surprisingly, I called my lawyer, who was shrewd and firm. "Donna, he's trying to find something. Prenuptial agreements are unchangeable. He's merely attempting to shake you," she asserted. "Allow him to continue." I confirmed that he no longer intimidates me. I faced Daniel and his legal team at the courts with confidence. Our eyes briefly locked, and I had a glimpse of the former Daniel, but it vanished as soon as it appeared. After hearing our case, the judge affirmed the nuptial agreement. Daniel's appeal was quickly turned down. A wave of relief and validation washed over me. Later, with regret in his words, Daniel came up to me. "I apologize, Donna. I was mistaken," he acknowledged. I turned to face the man I had once loved, but now had no feelings for. "Goodbye, Daniel." I murmured, "I wish you well," and left with a sense of relief. As the shelter prepared for a significant fundraising event, the community's support was tremendous. People were excited to contribute, and the event night was lively. I became aware of my progress from a quiet and introverted woman to a strong supporter of others. My friend and old coworker, Julie, approached me. "Donna, you've accomplished so much," she smiled. "We worked together to complete it." With pride and resolve, I said, "And there's still so much ahead." The success of the fundraiser is evidence of the community's belief and support. As I stood there, surrounded by individuals who encouraged and motivated me, I realized I was right where I should be. This was my new existence, full of community and purpose.